Nonsense, bullshit, nonsense, bullshit. You've probably heard those terms interwoven. What does it mean? Well, we've all had experience in our personal lives, our business lives, of coming across charlatans, snake oil salesmen, and all those things, and it impacts on our business lives quite dramatically. So, listen in, folks. For the next half an hour, me and my friend, business partner, Joe, Dr. Joe North, I should say, are going to be as detectives for you. And actually, we're going to explore that theme, why it happens, how it happens, and what you can do to minimize the impact on that. But before we do that, let's have a bit of music. And here we are back in the room.
And here we are, yes. Yeah. And, so the show's all about sort of detecting BS in business. And I think we've all fallen prey to, tantalizing, sparkly things that sound amazing, probably a little bit too good to be true. And we've invested in those and thought, actually, that didn't anywhere near live up to expectations. That didn't deliver what was promised. Or maybe it's people. And, sometimes these things, we're not necessarily talking about huge, big fraud, just the things that are, they're all right, but they're not all they're cracked up to be. And how to work through that, how to spot it, but also how to look inside a little bit and think about yourself and think, well, what is it that I'm looking for? And why did I make the decision to go after that? So it's going to be a really interesting show, isn't it? We've got, it's a really fascinating topic to explore.
Oh, absolutely. And what I would say, folks, by the way, if you're obviously just joining us, hello, put yourself in the comments box if you know you're out there. Let us know if you're happy to share any experiences. What I would point out, by the way, this is not something that just happens to startups. It happens to businesses in all different shapes and forms, supposedly on the surface, very clever, intellectual people. I've had it happen to myself a few times. I've had it happen in recent times, and I've been in business for 27 years. I'm not going to share the details. I know it's happened to Joe as well. So you're not immune for it. And in terms of the psychology behind why it happens here, it affects people of different shapes and complexions. So we can't guarantee you'll never be exposed to it and never succumb to it, but we're going to try and do the best we can to actually try and minimize the likelihood of it occurring.
Yeah, I mean, and this isn't about, if stuff does happen to you, please don't, be overly hard on yourself, because there are some incredibly clever people out there. And it's, when you're like me, I have a tendency, and I think, I don't know if I think you're the same, Mahmood. I don't want to speak for you, but where we trust in people and we want to think the best of people until they demonstrate otherwise. But there are some times where we just need to lift the lid up a little bit and see what's underneath there and really understand what we're getting into before we make a business decision. So
it's interesting you say that, Joe, because I think you're right. It's what's going on there, actually, because if you say you've got good systems here, it's sometimes when we overwrite systems, when we actually ignore systems that we've got in place, that actually that element happens. But here's a bit of history for you. So I know there's a bit of psychology involved here. So I often use the phrase snake oil salesman, and actually snake oil salesman has got its origins back in the early 1800s. So in the building of the transcontinental railway system in the United States, you had about 180,000 Chinese labourers being used here. And effectively what they did to get over the aches and pains of the day, they had these ointments and treatments they got from the water snake in China, and they used that as a very effective medication and all the rest of it. The Americans started to use it as well, and wishing to, feel how they were going to produce this product here, they started using things like rattlesnake and other products there as well to substitute, and that became the shorthand for things that were a falsehood and false medication here. But it actually does have its origins because it has an element of truth behind it as well.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, and many things do, don't they? Many of the expressions we use go back to something different. And I think in the age of social media, there are lots of experts out there. You know, I suppose we would put ourselves in the in a certain extent. You know, we're experts in our field. You're experts in your field. You know, at home or at work, listening and watching. But it's making sure that the expertise is really there, so that, or if you're going to partner with somebody or go into business with somebody or buy from somebody, that actually they are, who they say they are. So there's a lot about doing some due diligence, and you can go on trust and you can go on intuition, which is great. Always listen to that. But I think when you're going to make a big business decision or a big investment, it's about actually also doing due diligence. And not just when you feel there might be something wrong, but especially when you feel good about it.
Yeah, I think the application of due diligence, I think it's a good way of looking at it, folks. But if you've got this idea of due diligence, by the way, it is, as it implies here, it's saying before you enter into an agreement, before you enter into a contract, before you part with your time and energy and money, just satisfy yourself with some degree of evidence that what you're entering into is bona fide, it can stack up. We do that with holidays. I don't know if you're a TripAdvisor person, Joe, when you do go away, whether you check out things on TripAdvisor to see what the reviews and comments are.
I do. In fact, I won't book anywhere without looking at TripAdvisor, and I go back and back and back. And I think, I think some of us do more research into holidays or than we do into making some other significant decisions around even what house we're going to buy or what car are we going to choose. We look at holidays because we're investing our time, and it's precious time off, and we want to have a great experience. We do a lot of due diligence around that often. Not always, everybody's different. Yeah, but I think it's about always doing that regardless of how you feel about it, because emotions are helpful. Emotions can indicate to us that we need to explore something or reconsider something or go for something. But our decisions are driven by emotion, and sometimes emotion makes us a little bit irrational, or it makes us miss red flags that we might otherwise spot. So having a good process is good, I think, to help.
For sure. And I think when we think about processes, folks, I think probably is try not to personalize a business relationship too much. And I don't mean, as it implies here, is when you're making a business decision here, it's next to impossible. As I said, I've succumbed to ignoring my own advice on a few occasions here, is try not to personalize that, to say that, I've got to check the legitimacy of what I'm entering into. I've got to check the validity of what's going on. Do I know that this person is actually as they imply they are? It's not a personal conversation you're having in a personal capacity. So you've got to try and strip that emotional thing about saying, what does somebody think of me if I go through these processes as such? So keep the emotion out of it in terms of having to do that exercise, because that's one way you're going to build trust and develop a positive relationship, and basically save yourself getting your fingers burnt.
Yeah, and I think it's about having the right things in place. If you choose to go forward with that relationship, putting the right things in place to look after it. So sometimes clients will say to me, "We're really sorry, but it's our procedure that we have to get you to sign a confidentiality or a non-disclosure agreement or whatever. And I'm really sorry that we're asking you to do that because And I went, it's absolutely fine. I would expect to do that. I have no issue at all with doing that. We should do that. It professionalizes, and it protects everybody. So having those things in place as well, once you've decided that you're going to go ahead with something, and really understanding how that relationship is going to develop. So I think we've all been, we'd love to hear from you as well. What's the worst in a business context? What's the worst thing you've ever bought or service? It could be a product or whatever, a piece of advice or a course or something, and you thought, that was just such a waste of money. They didn't give me what they promised. Have you got any examples, Mahmood?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of here. So let me go for the more extreme in terms of that impacts on the ability of the firm to survive. And that's in the context of credit control. So you do some work for somebody and it ends up in a situation that you've got a challenge and a battle on your hands getting paid here. So due process should be, in theory, that when you actually agree the scope of work that you're going to do with a client, when you agree the products that you're going to deliver, you have your terms and conditions communicated earlier on. So these are the payment terms. I've checked you out that you're reliable, you're not a bad credit risk. I've got you onboarded. These are my terms of business. Either get deposit up front or you pay within X number of days there as well. You've got a system there. Now, once you've got that situation that you provide the service, you provide the product, it's quite easy because, you know, people go under the radar, they don't communicate with you, you've done the work, and then it comes the difficulty of getting that money in there. Now, my own personal experience, and this is in recent times, in the last couple of years here, I ignored the rules that I tell all my clients to operate. I ignored my credit control department and decided to give somebody the benefit of the doubt because of an emotional in me, felt sorry, and I got sucked in by the bullshit I heard. And before I knew it, the, shall we say, the amount of money owing was quite significant. It eventually all went very bad and very sour, and I lost up to, you know, in excess of 5 figures there. Now, what I learned from that, and I still repeat it, is that emotional thing got in the way, and I actually lost out financially. And other people, I think, also have a battle with getting paid by clients that don't want to disrupt a relationship. So that's one extreme example of something that's happened in recent times.
Yeah. And I think, you know, looking at statistics, particularly for small businesses, and of course, small businesses are the engine of the UK economy and the international economy as well. You know, they make up the vast majority of jobs, and wealth comes from small businesses and micro businesses. And it's sometimes difficult for people to understand, you know, how to do that credit control piece and how to get paid on time and all of those good things. But there are numerous bits of research that demonstrate that actually, you know, cash flow, getting paid on time is one of the biggest stressors and biggest concerns for small businesses, certainly in this country. So if you are out there, you know, you're watching, you're listening, you're having issues with that, please firstly know that you're not alone. And secondly, you know, you can put some processes in place, firstly to prevent it wherever possible, and secondly to follow that up and action that appropriately if you are there. So if a small business wants to start doing a bit more credit control when they're taking on new customers, what might some things be that they do, Mahmood? Because you're more of an expert in this than I am.
You've got a few basic things. You've got to do a risk assessment to begin with. You've got to make sure that in the early stages, you actually introduce your terms of business straight away. So a lot of people don't talk about the money, the contract. They don't even have what I call basic agreement, setting out what's going to be done until well after the event. They just want to get on with the work, or they feel quite grubby about talking about money. So I think you've got to get your mindset attuned, got that system. A couple of tips here. You can have an email address that goes accounts@wherever. So you create this illusion, this idea, if you're a very small business, that you've got a separate credit control department. Make sure you do things digitally. I wouldn't rely on the old notebook there as well. So you can automate sending out reminders and act on them. So if you say to somebody, my terms of business are 14 days, on the 15th day, if you haven't been paid, you need to have a line of communication straight away that says what's going on. Otherwise, you create that very bad, toxic culture. A lot of things can be done to prevent the problem arising. So those would be some of the handy things I would suggest there as well. And try not to let emotion get into it. And you've got to reinforce the idea that if you do have problems, your ability to continue in business is going to be severely impacted.
Yeah, I think, and that's really, really good advice. And putting that little bit of distance between you, the person, and the accounts, you know, invoicing, cash collection process, I think is a really, really good tip.
What about yourself, then, John? What's the truth? What have you got any recent experiences, or experiences when you were younger and naive, perhaps, when you got exposed?
Yeah, I think not so much in terms of getting paid, and sometimes actually getting, you know, as a small business in the past, when we were first starting up, getting paid on time wasn't because people were a credit risk per se. It's because just their processes are either, you know, not joined up inside the business, or they take ages to do, you know, to longer to pay than that. So it's been more of that. But I think the biggest area of exposure that I've had is where I've commissioned experts to advise me or guide me on certain business things, and you know, they haven't been all that good. They've not lived up to the expectations that they've created and the things that they've promised. And I think there's a lot of that about. I think that it's so easy with social media and the internet and all of that, to say that you various things, and actually, people will always put testimonials on websites and share testimonials on social media and all of those things. But actually, are people delivering the results that they promise? And on occasion, I've invested in people who simply haven't. No.
So for
I've learned from that. I've learned from it. Yeah.
For sure. So the action time is quicker. So for somebody who's street smart, savvy, and business sophisticated as yourself, what do you think is going on that makes you succumb to effectively let's call it snake oil salesman?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, I'd say it's snake oil salespeople.
People, yeah, sorry.
It's from people from all walks of life. Yeah,
let's be gender neutral here.
Sometimes I think it's unintended on their part. I don't think everybody is out there trying to rip us off, take our money and do a bad job for us. There will always be a small percentage in any profession, in any walk of life, where that's what they're trying to do, but in the main, it's because they have blind spots around their own area of competence, and they think that they're doing more than they are, or so I often think it's not intentional. But also we are, when we're buying into those things, we're looking for some sort of magic bullet or great solution, something that's going to solve something quite quickly for us, or get us that great answer that we're after. And we need to look at ourselves in that case as well and say, okay, how realistic are we being? It's actually our responsibility to get those results. It's our responsibility to make a good decision based on the information that we've been given. And I think just do a bit of digging, and really understand. Never do that impulse thing where you just sign up for something randomly on impulse. Take some time to think about it. Look at other things that the expert that you're buying into is doing, and seeing how well they're doing those, and what sort of space they're in, and what sort of results they're getting.
I think that impulsivity, I'm just going to make that word up if it doesn't exist, that impulse buying actually is interesting, actually, because I think if you take that into a different context, so I think in terms of how you're feeling at the moment, how stressed you are and the rest of it, if you look at it in terms of context of people controlling how much money they're spending, there's a little tip and tactic here that if you are somebody who get attracted by the shiny bauble syndrome, and I'll hold my hands up, by the way, my drawer is full of gadgets and stuff that I think great and I never use them, is to actually make the purchase, put it in your shopping basket if you're buying it, say, online, but don't actually check out until the next day. Come back to it and then actually ask yourself, do you actually really critically need it as such here? But I think if you're feeling stressed, if you're impatient, you want results quickly, if you're not quite clear of the direction you want your business to go in, I think it's quite easy to succumb to a quick fix for moving your business forward.
Yeah, and there's a lot of work and research done on trust in business relationships, and David Mather's created something called the trust equation, and it's if I remember it correctly, because I'm doing it off the top of my head, but it's trust equals credibility, which is do we know what we're talking about? Do we seem that we do? Reliability, do we do what we say we're going to do? Do we keep our promises? Are we there when times get tough? And openness. So are we being ourselves? Are we authentic? Divided by, so there's a big divided by line. So credibility, reliability, and openness, all divided by self-orientation. And that self-orientation is about how much we're in it for us versus how much we're in it to help the other person. And in an ideal situation, we'd be in it for both. I want to achieve my objectives, but I also at the same time want you to achieve yours too. And your objectives are important to me. We're going to help each other here. We're going to work together. If somebody is too self-interested, then, that's a really big turn off and it overrides everything else. But also if people don't have enough self-interest, we don't like that either, because they're just people pleasers and go yes, yes, yes to everything. We don't know what they really think and how they're really feeling. So business trust is reliability, credibility, openness, all over self-orientation, which means I want us all, we all want each other to win. I want to get out of this what you want.
We've got a balance of So sorry, Joe. So we've got a balance of selfless and selfish behaviour in there.
Yes, yeah, and you know that's really important. And I think when people sometimes present themselves, they present themselves as being credible and open, and that they're going to really help with all of these things. And then it's about making sure that they deliver on this as well, and thinking through, if a person or an organization or whatever it is that you're working with, if that doesn't perform well for you, if it's not delivering as expected, what have you got in place? What recourse do you have to actually correct it and either get the results that you're after or get the recompense? And and instead of complaining that you're not getting the results, if you're doing everything you can at your end, is thinking, okay, how can I pursue this in a different way? And having good agreements in place to start off with. Yeah,
I think you need a combination of the formality. I think you need an idea in the formality, and I would say also to have some confidence and self-awareness about the direction you want your business to go, your plan. And when you're looking to buy in solutions, when you're looking to employ people in your business, so this whole BS thing, by the way, this nonsense permeates from people that you employ, products that you buy, services that you access, people that you commission. We're all surrounded by it, and there's a lot of noise that goes on there. And I think you've got to have some self-confidence in what your business represents, what you're doing, and therefore you can make those much more, I'll say logical. I'm not talking about Dr. Spock logical here, but actually less emotive decisions and more sort of practical decisions.
And it's, by the way, the BS it's everywhere, but it's not everybody. The vast majority of people, the huge majority of people are good, high integrity, well-meaning people in business. Business has got there's a fantastic sense of community, I think, around business, around the world, actually. And my view is that my sense is that COVID, the last couple of years, has brought that community even closer in terms of working better together and understanding that collaboration is the way forward. So we're really talking about a super small percentage here, but still need to be aware of it. In the 11 years I've been in business, I probably have come across it a handful of times, shall we say, and out of the many, many, many people that I've dealt with.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think, generally speaking, I still, like yourself, go on that proposition that in general terms, people are decent, people are good, people want to do the best. Nobody's waking up in the morning thinking, who can I rip off? Who can I think? And I think sometimes there's also an issue of language that's used. So in the context, in legal terms, they have this thing called puff. So it's the hyperbole. It's the things that surround that thing. That when you market something, when you promote something, we're very much seem to be in a climate of you can't say something as a matter of fact to deliver it. You've got to jazz it up, you've got to sex it up, and that hyperbole, I think sometimes people use strange descriptions to describe what they're offering here, when it's actually more that do a Ronseal thing. What it says on the tin is probably going to serve your customers better than all the rubbish that goes around it.
Yeah, and there's it's also, we're all in business and I've said this over and over, and I will continue to say it possibly until my last breath, is that we're all in business to help somebody solve a problem that they've got, and that problem could be a good problem, like how do I look glamorous when I go out tonight? And you might be a fantastic hairdresser.
Hairdresser on the mind for tomorrow, isn't it? That's what it is.
It could be a positive problem. It doesn't have to be a bad problem, but we're all in business to help people achieve the things they're aiming to achieve, or do the things that they need to do. And so I think it's about really showing how we can help people, but being really really sure about what it is we're offering and why and how we're going to get there. I mean, I think you and I have been I'm sure this is the case with you. Again, I don't want to speak for you, Mahmood, but we've been in sort of, I don't know, Facebook or LinkedIn groups or whatever, and some of the conversations in there around, a client's asked me to do this. I've never ever done it before. I've no experience in this area, but I'm going to charge them this and do this. How should I, where do I start? And I think that's disgraceful. I mean, and we all have to do something. There's a first time for everything. We all have to learn how to do things. But being a bit, transparent about that, and not telling somebody that you know what you're doing when you don't. I think that's got to. We need a bit less of that, I think, in this
100%,
online
100%.
world. Yeah.
I don't know if it's because, I don't know, Jay, it's this. I will say, folks, by the way, we've got a limited amount of time here, but me and Joe thought this was such a massive topic here that we're going to be talking more about this next week here. So whatever we don't cover this week, watch out next week. We're going to come back with you on more. I think in the online space here, I think people have deluded themselves now, or deluding themselves, certainly some people, is that knowledge can be acquired literally in a very small amount of time. So in my own space, I've got lots of people who might have read something off Google, who might have read something in a chat room, and suddenly you reduce 3 to X number of years of training experience, and you can condense it by reading an article off Google about how to be an expert tax planner, budgeter, numbers person. I'm sure it must be the same in your space as well, that people look at a course, they've done 20 minutes, and they become the world's best innovators.
Absolutely. In fact, I'm going to be quite careful about how I position this, but I've got a family member who did an A-level in business studies, decided not to do the A-level at school because the school teacher had got a geography degree and never worked in business in her life, but she'd been on a training course for a week on how to teach business studies. Right. I mean, which is, and I'm sure the teacher did her very best. I love teachers. My mum's a teacher. Loads of relatives are teachers. So, kudos to teachers out there. But sometimes, we've got to really make sure we've got the training in the background and experience to show for it. We've got a comment here from Anna Bunch. Hello, Anna. It's really good to have you with us again. So Anna is a brilliant virtual assistant. Yeah. And does as a virtual assistant specializing with psychologists, I believe. Tell me if I've got that wrong, Anna. Lots of that going on in the VA world. How interesting. Yeah.
Does she mean like people pretending to be business studies teachers, or is she talking about people who can pretend they can do services that they can't really deliver?
No, I think there's a bit of a I think that Anna commented just before I'd said that. So I think it's about people saying they can do things that they're not actually properly trained or experienced in. And so it's really, really interesting. So do your homework. If possible, ask to speak to some previous customers or seek them out, and find out, look under the bonnet a little bit more.
Yeah, that's right. And folks, listen, we're not saying, you must never do anything new to what you're doing here. You can never pivot, You can never develop new product. It's not about that, but it's about, it's not fair on you because it creates stress internally. If you take on an assignment, if you take on something that is outside of your sphere of experience, outside of your sphere of knowledge, you don't even have any basic understanding of the area, and you try and actually deliver some value for somebody, because all that will happen is you'll create massive stress in your own world, and also it will negatively impact on the client, and at worst you can be sued for it as well.
Yeah, and Anna's clarified. Thank you, Anna. People taking on clients when they don't have the relevant skills. Absolutely, Anna. And this is some of the things that we've spotted in various membership groups or Facebook groups or whatever. And it's not on. You wouldn't. None of us would want. And the thing is, as well, Anna, I'm interested to know what you think of this. Is that it makes it harder, doesn't it, for the people who are great, who are qualified, who've put the years in and the time in to actually get those skills and get that expertise. So yeah, we have to work even harder to make that completely clear that we're good at what we do. Look, all walks of life, that's how it is.
Yeah, absolutely. It permeates everywhere, folks. So what's the one tip you would share with people how to minimize them getting their fingers burnt? Let's put it nice and short and colloquially there.
I would ask lots of questions, really understand, particularly when you're going to buy something. So I'm talking about buying an expertise service or something like that. Really understand what you're going to get before you buy and part with any money, have a process in place that's agreed between you and written down around what's going to happen if if things aren't delivered that are supposed to be delivered. So a service, some sort of service level agreement, and make sure you do your due diligence and do your homework before you buy into something, and make sure you're just not looking for shortcuts. So quick wins are great. We love quick wins, but not shortcuts that aren't really shortcuts, and false promises.
Yeah, I'd probably add a couple of bits to that. Is 100% agreed on the actual getting some form of agreement in place. It's the old adage about you never go shopping when you're hungry. So in other words, think about the situation, about what is it you want to achieve before you start looking for something or somebody, as far as that's concerned. So I know if I were to buy another car, I'd have a general thought in my own mind about what I want from the car, whether it's not just purchase price, but the running of air, the fuel consumption, the easyability of fixing it, and then you go and then you look for what you want. So have some form of criteria in your own mind about what you're looking for, and get it in writing where possible. Get it documented and get it in writing, because it gives clarity to both buyer and seller.
Yeah, definitely. That's great advice. Great advice. So we'll be back next week with more and different on this subject, because hopefully it will help you steer your course more successfully through the decisions you're making as we get into this year. So it's been great spending the time with you.
Listen, before we part company here, I think it's only fair to say, at the risk of embarrassing you, I believe somebody's had a superb article published today recently on innovation strategy in Raconteur. So I know this is not necessarily part of the program. Tell us what's Raconteur, and tell us why people should read this post.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. So, and that is it's a bit of a surprise. So, Raconteur is a really top quality business online business magazine supplement. So, and it's been written by Francesca, and she's done an incredibly good job. She's interviewed 3 of us who are innovation experts in different ways. So David Nunes and Jessica Norlander as well. And we've all got different perspectives. So David's very financial. Jessica is really fantastic on tech and so on. And she's put our 3 perspectives together to create a really, I really enjoyed reading the article, and she's done a fantastic job with it. So if you look at Dr. Jo North on LinkedIn, I've actually got a link to that post if you want to that article, if you want to have a read of it. But essentially it's about what is an innovation strategy, why do you need one, and how to start one from scratch. So really delighted, and Francesca's done an amazing job pulling all of that.
Well, she's chosen some excellent people. Obviously I've got a slight bias for one of them, and it's so folks, listen, I hope you got some value from this broadcast today. If you've got any comments, and it in the comments field, me and Joe always pick them up, and we look forward to your company next week. So avoid the snake oil salesman unless it's from an original water snake from China.
Okay. Thank you. See you next time.
Take care, guys.